Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you are doing well. I'm just waiting to see or hear my voice. Nope, make sure I'm there. Sounds like I'm there. Oh, and I like how it sounds. Okay, I can live with that. All right, good deal. Taking out the earpiece. I'm always struggling to make sure my audio sounds okay for you guys. So there we go. All right, well, welcome to another You Be the Behavior Consultant. Here we are, a Monday morning, a little bit colder in Texas. I wonder how it is where you are. And we're going to be talking about animals that are trained for educational purposes. So what does that mean? Oh, well, I guess we're going to find out as we get into this discussion, because I think it can mean a lot of different things. And I'm hoping that you're thinking the same thing, because we're going to really get kind of outside the typical definition. You know, I'm not thinking about just animals that maybe go to school programs or just that come out for, one kind of experience. So I'm looking forward to your thoughts and experiences on this one, because it's a really big topic. Let's be honest, it's a huge topic. So who knows, maybe we turn this into two conversations, but I've got a few things to get us started today, and of course lots of video clips. And boy, I could have gone into so many video clips. I had to whittle it down to just a few so that we weren't overwhelmed here. But let's get into just what this is for the new people. This is You Be the Behavior Consultant, a live stream I try to do as many Mondays as I possibly can. And here we are on this Monday. I present a topic for discussion. It is discussion based. You guys get to participate, share your experiences, your ideas, your thoughts and opinions. And I do have video clips for us to look at today, some from my past, some from 30 freaking years ago. And then we'll recap the topic at the end there. So what I would love to talk about today is educational experiences that feature trained animals. And what I was hoping to get into, and what I'm hoping that you all will share with me, is what you think has changed about these experiences over the years. Maybe what are some different types of educational experiences that you've, maybe been a part of, maybe you've seen, maybe the trends that have happened in the past and they're now happening, or maybe what you think is going to happen in the future. And then I think one of the things that I think about as a consultant is what's the criteria that we use to evaluate, if it's good welfare in these educational experiences. Because I think that's one of the things that we're really looking at as people that work in these environments. What is it that matters to us in these situations? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. And certainly, I've obviously, as always, I've got some things to get us thinking. And maybe you think it hasn't changed. That's another thing to consider as well. Maybe you think we're just doing the same old thing that we've always done. Who knows? So I'd love your thoughts on any of these questions. We don't have to go in any specific order here, but what do you remember? What were like some of the experiences if you were, maybe when you were young? Do you remember when you went to, a place that had animals? What were some of the experiences that you maybe participated in where there were trained animals? I remember one of my really early memories when I was a kid was going to a place where there was a trained horse, and I was into art when I was a kid, and I remember drawing a picture of this horse that was trained to do all these behaviors. It would bow. I think it did the counting stuff. And it was I lived in upstate New York, and there was the Saratoga racetrack, so this is like a horse racing thing. And so like the entertainment at the racetrack was this trained horse to do tricks. Yeah, and so that was one of my earliest memories of seeing a trained animal. So Al has interactive programs with dolphins, right? So those are something that I think that's a more recent, actually, so that makes me think, Al, I remember as a kid going to a thing in Florida where you did actually get to feed dolphins at the poolside. I don't remember if we could actually touch them. I think you could. You were within reach that you could touch them. but I don't remember if they let you, or I don't remember if the dolphins actually let you touch them, but I remember we could feed the dolphins, and I remember I really, 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 really wanted to do that. But now, as I think you're pointing out, is that there are these very structured programs where you can touch dolphin, where you can interact with the dolphin, and it's very structured and has a whole lot of there's so much to it. Riding an elephant, yeah, riding an elephant used to be something. Actually, at a zoo where I worked, that was one of the features that you could do. You could ride an elephant. Is at the Dolphin Research Center, Al, maybe in Florida. I don't even remember what it was called. I don't even remember. I want to learn recalling birds in a different environment. Well, we're not. So I might send you to the what is it? If you go to avian-behavior.org, there is a great site there where you can learn how to do that. So you might try that. Riding an elephant, yeah, that was a program that was featured at Marine World Africa USA. You could ride an elephant there. But there are places, obviously, in other parts of the world where that is still something that can be done. I don't know if it's educational, but there are some places I know that are like an elephant sanctuary type thing, where they do have more of where now maybe you bathe an elephant and you get to help take care of an elephant. But maybe there's no riding involved. And so they do more of here, help us take care of the elephants. And it's a little different kind of experience. It's evolved a little bit into something else. Yeah, so there's that. What are some of the other experiences? Yes, is that Marine World maybe that you're starting to write there, Chris? Because that's I worked at what was called Marine World Africa USA 30 some years ago, and the experiences are, well, I'm saying some of the experiences were different, but some of them are not. Yeah. Marine World Africa USA, where they would walk a tiger on a leash. Yeah. So, and it's funny. I went back and I watched a video clip online, and you guys can find them, where there were, I don't remember this when I was there, and the video clip that they showed was people walking big cats on leashes, mostly tigers, and that the guests could actually walk up and touch the tiger as it was passing by. I don't remember that happening when I was there. Maybe that was something that was phased out, that people could approach the tiger. But yeah, that was something that was in that the video clip, this really old video clip. SeaWorld in the 60s, feeding pools with educators. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yes, SeaWorld as a kid getting to feed the dolphins, like you mentioned. Yeah, at the place where I went, I don't think it was SeaWorld though. Or maybe it was, I don't know. We went to Florida a lot when I was a kid. That was, the New Yorkers always went down to Florida in the wintertime. But I do remember a poolside thing where you could feed dolphins. After shows, we would take the public about the animal, or you would talk to the public about the animals in the shows. Yeah. And those were things like, for me, I mean, I have to say, I'm one of those people that definitely any opportunity to get close to animals was very impactful for me. I mean, even going to, I think we talked about this before, going to Catskill Game Farm in upstate New York was huge for me, which was just a place where they had like goats and deer in a big area where you could just go feed them. That's all it was. They just gave you food, and you went, and I think it was like one of those ice cream cones full of pellets, and you would just go feed the animals. And that for me was like the best day ever. My parents used to take me there a lot, and that would make me very happy. Let's see. We were walking elephants in the zoo where guests could touch and feed them. Yep. That's something that I know some zoos still do. I think was it Lion Country Safari up in Canada was doing that still for quite a while. I don't know if they still do it now. And I know Australia Zoo would walk their elephants around the zoo. And I think Auckland Zoo, they didn't have a lot of elephants, but I think they had and I think they were down to one elephant for a while, and so that was, and they were walking that elephant around the zoo too. So some elephants still walk, or some parks still walk elephants around the zoo, and Marine World did too. I think at one point, but I think that stopped because they had elephants that were in the water ski show, which I will show you a picture of in a bit here. Yeah, so some of those experiences have changed, haven't they? Yeah. So we're talking about some old time stuff there. But then there's some things that are haven't changed, obviously. There's some things that are still go, and I don't want to say like, necessarily good or bad, but definitely things that have changed. So this was the water skiing elephant at Marine World, Africa, USA. Now this was before my time there. But yeah, that was something that did happen. And I think that I knew a keeper that was in that ski show. She showed us photos. Yeah, and there is one of those photos. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, a different time. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about, how those things come to pass and change. And so I think, the behaviors have changed. Some of the behaviors that the animals do, the types of experiences, so if we expand upon these things, some of the things that I think are different now is, and again, I'm, and you guys may find this too as we get talking about this. I've listed a bunch of things here. So again, as you keep coming up with your memories and your ideas and see what you think here. Because I go back and forth as I think as I listed all these out here, that some of these experiences, sometimes we have these one-on-one experiences, like we talk about the maybe these VIP encounters where somebody maybe does a special like swim with a dolphin experience. But I do recall like they weren't, they weren't like a paid experience, but like at Marine World, people could have these special one-on-one encounters with animals, and sometimes they were paid and sometimes they weren't. But even in recent years, I've been to, that's kind of a new trend, right? Well, I want to say returning trend in zoological facilities where people can purchase a special VIP experience that's one-on-one with a specific species. Like I've been to a place where, you could have a special guest interaction with a red panda, but you pay extra for it, or a Tasmanian devil, or I don't, like a binturong or something, but those are, cost extra, and there's an educational component to it, but it is, an up close and personal experience. Or it might be a small group of people that get that. But then we also have our one-to-many experiences, like our educational presentations that might be in a theater. Things that seem to change is, how close a guest can get to the animal. Sometimes we're allowing these close encounters, and sometimes we're saying no, it's going to be really far. And obviously, I think now with COVID, we have that may be changing as well. Stingray feeding pools. Oh yeah, that's a good example. So that I don't recall that happening in the past. That seems to be a relatively new experience. Although we did have touch pools for like sea stars and things like that. That's been around for a while. That's a good one. Let's see what else. The venue where that experience may occur. So that's kind of varied over the years. So we've kind of had the theater experience for a while. And we've had the school programs things, but now places make these like little intimate places where, like a special experience can happen. And let's see what else. Now, certainly the information and the messaging has kind of evolved. I would say, the water skiing elephant thing, like I said, I wasn't there at that time, but, that seems a little bit more on the entertainment side than the information messaging side. Although now we seem very strong on trying to have, try to find that balance maybe a little bit more and maybe leaning more. And then there were times where things were so heavy on the messaging that, we kind of lost our audiences. The training methodologies, we certainly seen changes there. And I think the species considered as suitable candidates, we certainly see training as valuable in managing and caring for the animals. But now I think there's sort of more animals that get included for educational opportunities, because we may consider training animals that are staying in their habitats, but maybe we train them in that habitat and that becomes an educational opportunity. So, we've seen people that, may go into the habitat where the wolves are on display and train those wolves on display, or train, what was the other one I was thinking about? Oh, I'm going to show you a tiger one that where the tigers kind of stay there, but they get trained there as well. They don't always stay there. They also sometimes shift off, but where they hang out can be there also the place where they get trained. We think of keeper talks, right? That a keeper talk is an educational opportunity, but we also may include some training in that so that it turns into almost like a show or an educational experience. So let's see. So here we go. So I've kind of put those out here in words a little bit more. You could have your theater-based presentation, your intimate one-on-one encounters with animals, which might be paid experience, your kind of pop-up educational experience with animal ambassadors, your keeper talks inside or beside the enclosure with trained animals, your educational presentation at the enclosure or habitat, your behind-the-scenes tours or experiences, and your classroom programs that might be on site, or your outreach off-site programs. So I don't know, you guys, might have to add some. So maybe like the stingray feeding pool, that might be considered one of those, that's a opportunity at where the animal lives. So you guys may have to add to this, because I'm sure I didn't include everything. And I thought this picture here is actually from a show that I was a part of, 30 years ago. This was the theater at Marine World that was redesigned while I was there. And then we called this theater Twin Beaks. And so that was our little replica of sort of like San Francisco. And you can see we have Inspector Clueless, and that's Robin Arnold, if you know Robin, on the left. And Anne Marie is on the right there, and she's being our policeman. And that's Max, the Southern Ground Hornbill. I think he's still there. I hope he's still around. Last time I visited, he was still there. And we had another character called Grandma Gertie, and then we had the newspaper kid who was like, newspaper boy, and so the whole story, there was like a big storyline, and the storyline was about Grandma Gertie. You can see the cart on the left side of your screen there, so that was like a flower cart, and if you can see that little black thing there, that is it looks like a black bag with a dollar bill sign on it. So that was the money bag that her cockatoo stole from the bank. And inside of that is a deed to rainforest land. And the whole thing is about, the Inspector Clueless and the police officer trying to, find the money bag that was stolen from the bank. But the reason that the cockatoo stole it is he was trying to save some habitat for his friends, so that the land doesn't disappear and they can save, and then they're trying to solve the mystery, and all the birds are helping to solve the mystery that come through, and we use their adaptations to help solve the mystery. And so that was kind of the whole storyline. So the animals are kind of characters in the story. We get to talk about their adaptations and how they're going to help us solve the crime. And in the end, it has, an important conservation message and how we can all, help preserve the world for these animals. So it was a pretty elaborate story, very character driven, very entertainment. There was lots, we had our own sound engineer who, was changing the music along with, based on what was happening on stage. So, and every 2 years we would pretty much change our set and our storyline. So it was, the birds pretty much did the same behaviors. We just adapted it to a new script and a new set. And so I'm going to show you a video. And it's funny, I labeled it old bird shows, and some of these clips are from 30 years ago. And then I'll show you some videos of, quote, new bird shows. And I kind of went, oh, it's not all that different. But you're going to see the set that was before this one, which was who typically writes the storylines. We did. We wrote it. Our bird show team wrote the story, which was pretty fun. So what you're going to see in this video clip of, well, I can actually play it because I took the sound off, so let me just play it. So this was a show that when I first went out on my own consulting that I kind of I set up with Africam Safari, and so this is just some of our training, and this was, training a couple of macaws to fly back to our, where they were supposed to go. These were some macaws, young macaws, and they had broken all their tail feathers because they were chewing on each other's tail feathers. This was at Dallas World Aquarium, so this would have been in like 2002, so 20 years ago. And this was up at Earth Rangers in Canada. This is back in Mexico. And, and I look at some of the things, and even the things we did to train the birds that I'm just like, things I would do differently. That's a curassow that we're training to put a stick in a bowl, like if he was going to build a nest. That's the old stage before the bird twin beaks. So that was the bird drop in. It was supposed to be a haunted hotel, and I'm on stage there in yellow. And this is Disney's Discovery Island before it was shut down. So that would have been in like 96, 97. This is back at the bird drop in. So we're talking like 92, maybe. So, 30 years ago. That was the innkeeper catching the bird. So this is Disney's Discovery Island, our kookaburra that called on cue. That's Disney's Discovery Island, so 90, 95, 96, something like that. Again, there we go, 92. That's the bird drop in, the haunted mansion, the innkeeper. These are, and a couple bird watchers. That's me as a bird watcher. That's at Brookfield Zoo, so that's probably 94. And we did like a camp, kids going to summer camp was the storyline. And again, at Disney's Discovery Island, so probably, 95, 96, 97. And so that one's a little bit more, just birds, oops, let me go back here. That was just, more like you're coming to Discovery Island was sort of like, I don't know, like an island if you got shipwrecked and came to an island, and so the island had, big old barrels, like, I don't know, whiskey barrels, and kind of broken down boxes, wooden boxes, and what do you call it, ropes and things like that. So it was just more themed like the island, I guess, and so we didn't really have a particular theme to it, and we just kind of had more generic jokes, not really a storyline, and so just a little bit more informative. And then this other video I showed you in the past was our show that we set up in Omaha, which wasn't that long ago, just a few years ago. And you'll see the set we went for was more natural. The backdrop will look a little bit more like wire, but that's because what's supposed to happen is the plants are supposed to grow on that wire. And so it would be all natural plants on the wire. And the theater was just sort of a generic theater called the Meadowlark Theater, and there you can see more of the plants growing on the backdrop there. And so it can be a generic theater. Many things could happen on that stage, and then it was more sort of, not characters, but just, a host kind of guiding through this, kind of little journey of getting to know the birds there and and sharing more sort of natural history. And and we tried to do something what we thought was a little bit different. We tried to break the fourth wall a bit more. You know, we didn't have our presenter kind of burst out on stage. We actually had our presenter start out in the audience and pre-show really talking to the audience and getting to know audience members and getting to know things about them, what their favorite birds were, if they had a pet. And then that person would sort of start the show from inside the house instead of from backstage. And didn't even spend a lot of time on stage. They actually kind of walked out in the house a lot, and then really would try to bring in anecdotes from the audience and say people's names from the audience and really make it more intimate and conversational, as opposed to I'm giving you a lecture about animals from the stage. So we tried to make it a different kind of experience. But you'll see, in many ways, the behaviors are very, very much the same. Just a lot of A to Bs and birds flying around. Although one of our goals was to try to keep birds out on stage longer than what had been seen in a lot of bird shows in the last 10 years. Like, a lot of things that I had seen were very a bird is out there for a few seconds and then it's gone. And we didn't really want that experience. We wanted people to really kind of get to know the birds a little bit and not just have them zip by and you didn't get to see them or get to know them or know anything about them. So we did try to have them stay out there a little bit longer. Okay, and then I wanted to share this experience. So I don't know if you can see what's coming out there, but so we have a horse, and then you're going to see some macaws come flying out. So this is at night, and this is a theatrical experience. It's a history of Mexico. It's a dinner theater experience. At Xcaret, which, Xcaret's really fantastic if you ever get a chance to go there. And so the macaws loop and loop and loop, and this is sort of the big finale of the show. And this is a king vulture flying down to the witch doctor at one point in the show. And then Xcaret also has other experiences. So here they're flying 42 macaws. And so these all, and now I believe this is up to 100, they told me. They all just fly back down to their enclosures. And I know they fly them from other places too. Yeah, the night show is really interesting. So the night show is very much the history of Mexico. And they have other animal experiences in it too. Like there's one part where the performers are all holding a white pigeon, and they all let go of the pigeon, and the pigeons fly back to their loft. And you can't tell because the sun is now set in the night show, but the pigeons are released before the sun has gone down, and the sides of the theater are open, and so the pigeons can actually fly through the side to their pigeon loft. The macaws actually land up on banisters up on the top sides where there are handlers that catch them and bring them back down. Yeah, the night show is really cool. So if you do ever get a chance to go to Xcaret, stick around for the night show. It's worth it. You'll have the song stuck in your head, the one that you're hearing in the beginning there, the Así se siente Mexico. But it's cool. It does give you kind of a history of Mexico, so it's fun. So I think I showed you a little clip before, I may not have, of the, I've been going to the UAE to work with the team over there. And they recently sent me this clip of the progress they've made. So here are the whistling ducks flying in. Here are the ibis flying in. And you also see some African grays doing their flights. And so this is, they're working towards the... this is sort of the end behaviors of the show. And so you'll get an idea of what the set looks like, and they actually have more birds that will be a part of the ending. but this is just a few of them. There's one of the grays, and all the grays were, you know, pets that were confiscated that, you know, got, or ex-pets given up, whatever. So they all have different things about them, but they've been doing pretty well and getting in the show. The birds are supposed to fly down to the trees where the guys are standing there. So yeah, so those were a few show things. Sorry, my face is not there, right there. But yeah, so those are some kind of shows throughout time in different ways you might see trained animals in theater-based presentations, just to give you some food for thought. Again, you know, when we're thinking about ways trained animals might be in presentations. And I've also seen some other things, you know, that, I mean, I could have put so many videos in here that you know would be just watching videos for hours and hours. You know, some things I've seen in Indonesia where, you know, similar to what you saw in the night show from Ex-Cadet, there's another one in Indonesia. Is it Agong? I forget, it's Agong is in the title, but I can't remember the whole title. But it's also kind of a story of in Indonesia where, you know, they have, they have a tiger in the show that walks across the stage. They have, I think they have an elephant in the show. They have civet, and yeah, and so again, it's sort of, you know, the animals are part of their history and part of their story, and so they are part of the show as well. And when I went and worked there, we did some training with some of the animals in the show, and then they also have, you know, their elephant presentation is very much a story. I think I've shared videos from that before, in which the elephants are, you know, are very much a part of the story, and where they come out and do behavior. And, you know, sometimes there's no handler with the elephants, and you know, there might be 5 or 6 elephants going out on stage doing stuff and then going backstage, just like the way you see these birds in the bird show. Hours and hours, that would be great. Yeah. And then and so I thought I would show you another experience that is a little that may seem new, but it's actually an old idea that might be a little different than what you might have considered before. And it does it have audio with it? It doesn't have a lot of audio. It's just the presenter speaking, but I'll let you watch it and then we can talk about it a little bit.
That's the way everyone, we just keep going. It's going to be worked by Keith in front of me here and the south. There goes 2 almost red lights. Come out and give us a round of applause. They're really good. They've nailed it. Keep going. She just needs
They use it out in the wild and in captivity to get to the height advantage. The tigers, when they're out in the wild, they'll be stalking.
And then they have carnassial teeth, and those teeth act a bit like.
But it's also a great way to leave territorial markings behind. To do so, stretch the Kiko. We might try for a little bit of a jump off the ground. Now, Dan's used a little bit of red meat there, a little bit long, and probably uses more energy than what's actually required. But we're going to try for a little bit of a jump off the ground from there. She's got a nice big run up into the air. Oh, a bit of a handstand. Let's give her a big and up she goes.
And she's going to finish that piece of chicken off the top of the tree. Look at the incredibly upper body strength that she's using at the moment. Because it's there has to be something in it. In this case, a piece of chicken. In the wild, it might be a bird or a monkey. Maybe you let this prey hanging out. And then we give her a big round of applause as she takes her forward and steps down the tree.
1, 2, 3. Up he goes. Nice slow one today. Let's give Kai a big round of applause.
I'm going to get you guys to yell John's names in hand, right? I'm pretty ready. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I didn't get excited enough for that, guys. That's my fault. 1, 2, 3. So much better. That was good.
You see a little dive there from Madeira? Nice little dive from the bottom of the pool.
Oh, not a bad jump there from Madeira. How about we give it another round of applause?
Yeah, so Adrian says she loves seeing it, and Chris says keeps the tigers in shape. So that's Tiger Island at Dream World. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but Tiger Island did start at Marine World Africa USA in I don't know if they started it at Redwood City or if they started it at Vallejo. I'm not sure. But, I remember Tiger Island when I worked there. And eventually the guys that started it out there, and Sully says out in Africa and Arizona has something similar to this called Tiger Splash. This is a show that got me interested in free contact work with cats. Oh, okay. So it inspired a lot of people. Yeah. So so those guys that did it at Marine World took it to Dream World in Australia and started it up there. And I know that some of the guys that learned how to do it at Dream World took it to the Australia Zoo, and so they have one in Australia. I didn't know that they have it in Arizona, so thanks for sharing that, Sully. Though I can't say I wanted to do this type of work anymore. Yeah, I think maybe there's an age limit for all of us on some of these kinds of things. I mean, I never, I got to touch some of the cats when I was there, but obviously with the handlers right there doing their job. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's obviously controversial. But their whole thing obviously is to get people excited about conservation. I mean, everything about it is, those people are super, super, super passionate about tiger conservation, and they raise a lot of money for conservation for big cats. Every place where I've seen this set up, that I've personally seen it set up, I haven't seen all the setups, but the ones that I've seen are super, super, super into big cat conservation. So it's a different kind of experience than some places support, but the ones that do support it, their goal is definitely that combination of education and entertainment with the goal of supporting conservation. So it's really it's those kinds of things that. For me, I think it's really interesting because it's really it's been around for a while. It's still going on and being successful at other places. So again, I just think it's interesting to talk about. I just think it's really interesting because I think as we keep changing how we're doing things or not changing, I don't know. I just find it an interesting conversation because as I was looking at all these different videos and thinking about, well, what is our direction? What are we, what do people want to do or not do these days? And how does COVID impact things? Because let me show you this video too. I'm not sure if I showed you this one before. So this is a guest feeding experience. This is in Indonesia. And there is a person there providing instruction, but also educational information about tigers. It's a paid experience. The cats are in their habitat, and the guest is in the enclosed space. And they have to feed with these special utensils that cannot be pulled through. There's actually it's like a little T-shaped bar. I don't know if you can see it in the guest's hand. I'll let it replay there so you can look closely at the utensil. So even if the cat, decided to chomp down on it, the cat can't pull it through. I don't know if you can see in her hand there, the T. But yeah, so it, and now with COVID, they may not be doing this. But yeah, so it gives a person, a chance to see these animals up close. I'm sure they have cats in there they feel more comfortable with, not something that's going to be super eager to get the food. But yeah, it gives this opportunity to engage in perhaps a safe, supervised way and get some education going on at the same time. Yeah, so there's experiences like that are kind of interesting. They let me give it a go, and I thought it was pretty fun. I have to agree that. And Adrian says that is really, really cool. Those are the kind of experiences that people remember. Sure. And yeah, so you come back to these things of who drives the decisions on what kinds of experiences can people have? Is it the animal training professionals? Is it management? Is it trade organizations? Is it the law? Is it the consumer? Is it a combo? Is it others? And what do we think the future will look like? And then we also have to think about animal welfare and what questions we might ask when evaluating these different types of experiences. And so keep those questions in mind, and we'll look at a few other things that that we do. So let's see. Going back to that show in the UAE, they also have a few porcupines that are being trained to do some things in the show. And so you can see the crested porcupine, has been learning to go to these stumps. And the guy sent me an updated video of one of them here. I can't tell if this is probably the female, because she's so fast. I can tell that she's getting it down pretty well. And so, eventually they're going to fade out the trainer, and she'll just go out there on her own and go to those stumps and head back to the back area on her own, which is a direction I think I've seen, and Annetta's seen this show as well. We watched a show that was very much just the animals doing things on their own. You didn't really see any people interacting with the animal. It was narrated by a voiceover for the most part. And so it was kind of like, animals doing things in sort of this beautiful backdrop without much interaction from people. And so, it could be sort of a beautiful experience. So there's one type of experience with a porcupine. And then I'll show you another video here in a second. We'll just let this porcupine do her thing. Get on home. And then you may have this kind of experience where it's a more intimate,
They can see.
Get to know our prehensile-tailed porcupine.
Okay, that's why we give him the larger bubble target. It's very early.
Did you target here with the built-in clicker?
We attached one with a green electrical tape. We're very into our color coding with our program animals. So all vegetarians, all herbivores get green only target. I'll give you a minute to just hang out.
I know, I'm scared.
So porcupines, because they're he does have a prehensile tail target. Sometimes he gets real.
That's cool.
I will give him that one for the moment. He does often get very close to the target, but not quite touch it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to play again. Maybe not. Maybe I have to play it again. I don't think I have it on loop there. I might just ask it to play again. Because I like what was said. This is an awesome display. Porcupines are so cool. I'm not sure if that was about the one with this one or the one in the running, but I did want to talk about this display here because I love what Oregon Zoo did. Is that screen behind there is a portable screen, and so they can bring their prehensile-tailed porcupine. Oh, okay, good, Oregon Zoo, great. They can take the portable screen wherever they bring their prehensile-tailed porcupine, and so it creates this really nice display with just a table and a branch, and there's a crate down below, so the porcupine has the opportunity to say, hey, I feel like going back to my crate. She can, no problem. And I think it creates a really nice opportunity for people that are going to take pictures, and the porcupine is against that nice backdrop there. So I really like that. Let me see if I can. I don't know why I don't have that set on loop. I'm sorry. Let's go back there. So I think if I do this, I can pause it and you can just look at the display. There we go. Yeah, so it had, you can really get a nice picture, and you've got that nice backdrop, and it's portable. So, if they're, doing, wherever that animal is going to be, it's still going to look nice, and kind of tell you where that animal is more likely to be found. So I thought that was a really great idea. And so I think they do that with a number of their animal ambassadors that have the ability to do behavior in other places. Yeah, and Adrian says consistency for the porcupine too. It looks the same no matter where she is. Yeah, so she's got that table with the cloth, with the familiar branch that has the right smells, and she knows the setup of, you can always go back to the crate, and you can always come up to the top of the branch, and again, being that they're arboreal, she's probably going to want to be up there on the branch. Ruth says, I've done this very fun encounter at Oregon Zoo. Yes, awesome. Yeah, wonderful. The thing I remember on this day that I was filming is I was so sick because I had chikungunya, which is a mosquito-borne virus, and it had relapsed. And I'm laying on the floor taking this video. I was so sick. And she was doing like a special just practice run with the porcupine. For me and a few zoo, like volunteers and stuff. So they were just doing a training session, but I remember being so sick. Oh. But anyway, yeah, it was great. And so I do really love this setup. I think it's a really great idea, and in a low cost, effective way to make a nice setup for anybody that's working with animals. I haven't been to the Oregon Zoo in years. I should visit again. I agree. They do some wonderful things there. So, and they have a really fantastic group of animals. And Ruth says, "Oh no, that's sad, Barbara. Glad you got to witness this anyway, because it's a really great setup and experience." Yeah, that was a few years ago when I had my lovely mosquito-borne virus, but I'm doing okay now. They have some other really great setups for other encounters at Oregon Zoo also. Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, they have a really fantastic ambassador animal program there. So they've got some great ideas that we can all, I'm sure, learn from. So I also wanted to share, I've got so much more to share with you, and we're already getting on to some things here. So let me share a few other things with you. So even though, we're just kind of, I pulled this clip of walking this guy through, I already demonstrated how to get this hornbill doing A to B's to his arm. Little recall stuff and going back to the perch, and so now I passed it over to this guy, and so we're having a little fun helping him get comfortable with the process. But what I really want you to notice is everything behind him, because that is actually a little bit of a stage in their absolutely giant walkthrough aviary. And what they have done there is they've got all these stations for birds to go to basically just get food. And so they, at certain times of the day, the birds know to come down to these stations, and the guests can basically get like a little keeper talk in the aviary. And it's a beautiful giant aviary in Tom and Safari. I think this one is in Prigon, because they have 3 parks, or Bogor, I can't remember. But yeah, it's really cool. So this is another one of those situations where you're in the habitat with the animals, and the birds come down and basically, mostly just get fed. They don't do a lot of behaviors. But they did want, they wanted a few more things, and so that's why we started working with these hornbills. You'll also see a cockatoo sitting on the railing there as well. That's getting some head scratches. But yeah, so yeah, it's a really beautiful setup, and they turned it into a nice little stage area, and a great way for people to get an educational experience with the birds. So yeah, so you'll see another hornbill coming in, and I don't know if you'll see, there's another bird up there that's kind of flapping its wings in the background. There it is, just hopped down. That's like, I want some too. And so they all start figuring out, oh yeah, this is the place to be. And they'll all come in, and it's just a great place to do a nice little educational experience. And I love that they've turned it into this really beautiful thing. It's a gorgeous space. They do some fantastic exhibits there. So yeah. So let's see. This is way cool and creative use of space. This is really nice. The station idea. I don't know why my videos are not repeating. They're supposed to. The Desert Museum in Arizona used a natural outside stage in the forest to show the raptors flying from point to point. Yes, I've heard that, and I've heard it's amazing, and I just haven't seen it yet. I really, really do want to see that. I know ZAA is scheduled to be in Arizona next year. I don't know if it's near that facility or not, but I sure would like to go see that for sure. Okay, and I do want to show this video because I did share it online, but it's just a fun one to share.
Like walks along.
Our little toad.
Or just sort of like it just drags along, you know what I mean? Yeah, there you
There we
go.
go. Yes, good job.
And then you could just let that cricket go. Yep, there you go.
Perfect.
Maybe.
Good. So it may have been he
Perfect.
could have already seen you.
So he kind of like walks along.
All right, so now this one is set to repeat. Good. All right, I might bring down the audio on that one. So, Toad Buddy, yeah. So the reason I wanted to stick this one in here is more so because of the species and the fact that, you know, people are considering training amphibians as opposed to just grabbing and going. And this was a really fun session for me. And those of you that are members of animaltrainingfundamentals.com, you'll notice I put in what I call a quick win that goes into more details about what we were doing in our session here, because the team wasn't confident that he was really responding to the target, and they were having a hard time getting the reinforcer to him, you know, contingently, like him responding to the target and him getting the food right away. And so we did some things to make it more likely that he would respond. And there's a lot of other details that we go into to increase this comfort and make it more likely that he'll respond. And that's in that quick win there. Then you probably got it in the email that I sent you that takes you straight to that link. But I just love that, you know, people are thinking about training amphibians as opposed to just, I'll just grab him and go, and now he's I'm going to hold him in my hands and show you a toad. You know, this team, I cannot tell you how many details they thought about to improve his welfare, and so that being an animal ambassador is something that they hope to make something that is, you know, good welfare for him. I think that's so cool. You know, he's not just a toad that gets shown to kids. He's like an important part of their collection, and they care about his welfare just as much as they care about the big stuff that, you know, people think of as high profile. You know, he's important to them. So training the cricket is next. Yeah. So I thought that was really important and cool. And I think that's, you know, a trend that maybe wasn't so obvious in the past, at least not in my experience. So, you know, to me, that's pretty cool stuff that they took into consideration. All right. So I did want to get into, I know we're already almost at time. Let's see. I think this is great. I think it is also great to show people these types of behaviors. Most people take smaller animals and their intelligence for granted, and this really lets them show off himself. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, and that was just one session where we started getting, you know, really obvious responses. So, you know, I can't imagine where they're at now. I can't wait to find out their progress when I touch base with them next. So I may have some really cool stuff to share with you down the road. We'll see. Okay. So I did want to get into, I know, like I said, this is where I was saying this topic could just go on forever and ever because, you know, to me, I think about what's the future going to look like? You know, what are some of the things that we looked at today that might, you know, continue, stick around, what might change? Because, you know, I'm hearing a lot of buzz in the zoo world where people might be moving away from, you know, any kind of harnesses or halters on animals, or maybe less sort of human interaction with the animal, more hands off, more separation. So like, like I was talking about the show where maybe the person isn't interacting with the animal. Maybe it's more seeing an animal on stage, no human on stage. And that goes back to these questions of, who's driving these decisions. And, and and how does it help with getting our messaging across, and what do we think it looks like? And I'm not saying these are good or bad. I just find it interesting. It's just interesting. Let's see. Chris says, I think ABI, which is Avian Behavior International, has a really cool interaction that they offer guests. Yeah, they do. If you go to avian-behavior.org, they do these really cool, sort of private interaction type things where you can go have an experience with birds of prey, or an experience with their ground hornbill, or an experience with flying macaws, and you're kind of like out in nature and you go hiking with a hornbill, or so it's a more intimate immersion type of experience, and it's out in nature, so you also have that beautiful thing to experience, and it is a beautiful location where they do it. So and again, Sully says natural behaviors being shown with less human interactions, but the educational points are critical too. Yeah, so I think they tend to show a lot of flight behaviors and natural behaviors, and I think what's kind of cool with ABI is that you're getting to know an individual animal and their personality. So I think there's a little bit of a personal connection, which helps you care, I think, in a different level. And so there is, that kind of connection, which might be a little different when you're so far removed from the animal, when you're seeing it far away and don't know it as an individual. So there's that to think about too. There's different ways to connect. There's a lot of different ways to connect. And so it's hard to say which is is one way the only way. And, I think all these different experiences may have value. It's just, that's why I'm saying this is a very heavy topic. There's a lot of things to think about. So keep these thoughts going here and keep throwing them in the chat there, because I'm finding them very interesting. I really don't have any particular judgment one way or another. I just think it's interesting to think about, because I think it's going to keep changing. And it might go back a little bit to some of the old things. It might change to something new. I mean, there's some things I definitely think we should keep thinking about. I love the toad, training the toad. I love training some of these species that we hadn't thought to train before. I really, obviously the things that help people connect is significant, but at the same time, we have that line, right? There's that line of what do we think is okay, in terms of, like we're not okay with, I think everyone is sort of on the same page of, pulling baby tiger cubs for photo ops is something that our culture is not comfortable with, right? So even if the consumer wanted it, our culture is not so good with that, because it doesn't seem like there's a, it doesn't maybe do right for the welfare of the animal in the long run, right? Where do those animals go? So, so things like that is an issue. And so that kind of leads to some of these welfare questions that I have. So when we evaluate a different means of providing an animal ambassador experience, we might ask some of these questions. And these, quite honestly, are pulled from materials that I give my my clients. So Annetta says less human intervention and natural behavior is good, but human and animals interaction also has its values. So agree, there's many factors, right? Like the sideshow zoo thing from Tiger King when animals are often abused. Yeah, so I don't know enough details other than the TV show, so I don't know if I can comment on that. So I don't want to say something that I don't know if it's true or not. So I'm gonna just stay out of that one. But when so these are things that I send my clients when they're kind of deciding on what they might do for their animal, for their programming. So I usually tell them, ask yourself, what do you want to express with your programming? What is your messaging? That might be the first question to ask. Oh, yeah, just mean the baby tiger photo shoot thing. I get you. It's okay. And you might ask yourself what species might facilitate that task, what behaviors can facilitate that task. And then we have that question, will the animals interact directly with the public or quite close to the public? That might be a question you're going to want to evaluate. And then the people that you have working with those animals, are they experienced with those identified species, or do they have access to resources to help them with the identified species? Because like sometimes people are really interested in free flight, but they may have never done that before. And you don't want to, have that expectation on somebody when that isn't something that they have experience with, and so you're kind of setting them up for failure if they haven't done that before, because it's it's something that you just don't go out there and do. You need someone to mentor you on that. What housing is required for the species, and can it be provided? So that's a big one, right? All of us are very concerned that animals have good habitats to live in, and I think one trend that I really do support, if we can make that happen, is especially for animals that are going to be in some kind of educational capacity, is I really love the idea that the habitat that animal lives in is as good as any animal that might be on display, so to speak. So I think we should be past the days of sort of warehousing an animal for an educational experience if we can, right? So I think I was talking to a friend of mine who's in Europe, and he was saying how that animal that's in the bird show should live in an enclosure that's as great as the bird that's living in the aviary that's on exhibit. It shouldn't be in some small tiny place just so it can be taken out to fly for 2 seconds and then put back in a tiny enclosure. It should live in a habitat that's as nice as the aviary as the birds that the guests are seeing when they walk through the zoo. So I like that mentality. I think that's a really good approach. And how many times per day will the animal be requested to present the desired behaviors? Are more animals backups required to meet the number of times per day the animal would be asked to present those behaviors? And can another animal or behavior be substituted for the same behavior point you want to make? Like sometimes people have storylines that require a certain activity to be presented in that storyline, and it requires an animal to do this activity. And you can write it so that maybe the animal doesn't have to do it, maybe a human can do it, or a guest. But if an animal must do it, then you need to have enough animals that can take the place of the other animal. Are there sufficient numbers of staff members to care for the animals at the level desired? I don't know about you guys, but there's some shows where there's like these crazy, outrageous number of animals in these shows that are just whizzing by for like 2 seconds, and then they're gone, and sometimes you wonder, or there's like hundreds and hundreds of birds at the end, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how can you keep track of all those animals, make sure they're safe and healthy? So sometimes I wonder about those things. And what are the liability concerns of the facility? What are the safety parameters for the facility in regard to that certain species? We know some animals are more dangerous than others, and so you've got to make sure everybody knows what they need to do to be safe. And then based on these criteria, what is the maximum numbers of animals the facility will allow? So some comments here. Dolphin interactive programs are based on these 6 points. So like Clyde and Seymour, Annetta says, regulated by law. So that's great. Yeah, so, it's great to, and I guess I have 12 points here, but it just renumbered. But yeah, it's important that we are regulating ourselves on these things, and it's great that there's even more support for that beyond that. But yeah, so these are things that I often share with my clients so that they are checking themselves before they get in too deep, because a lot of times we have people offering animals that they say, oh, this will make a great education animal or a great animal ambassador. But before you start just accepting things, you want to ask yourself, is there a reason for taking on this animal? Does it, can we take care of it? Does it help with conveying a message we need to take or we want to share? And do we have the skill set for it? You know, is our team, do we have a space for it that we can provide it the kind of welfare it needs? There's a lot of questions to ask before we start building a collection. I prefer that people, build the collection with intent as opposed to just taking in all sorts of animals. So those are some of my thoughts there. All right. Well, we're a little over 12, and as you can see that there's a lot more we could talk about. I barely scratched the surface here. So, and I didn't really give you answers, but I really just wanted to get you guys thinking, because I think it's interesting to see where things might go. Yeah, is it necessary enough for that animal to be put through a program like that? I imagine it can be stressful. Well, the goal is for it not to be stressful, right? That's the intent. The way that I actually just wrote up a report for someplace. The way I view it is that if we set it up properly, it should be fun all the way around for the animal. They should be living in a wonderfully enriched habitat. They should be voluntarily participating in an educational presentation that's fully reinforcing and fun to do all the behaviors. And then they get to go back to a really cool, fun, enriching habitat. That's the idea. Everything about an education program should be fun for the animal. So that's the goal, right? And so if we set it up right, then that's how it should be. And that includes paying attention to all those things yeah, exactly right. Oh, good. Yeah, that's our goal, and there's no reason it should be not 100% pleasant experience for the animals involved. So that's and then at the same time accomplish the goals of delivering educational messaging about about wildlife conservation. So usually, that's the message we're trying to convey. Right. And Al says not every animal is suited for the job. 100% agree with that. And that is why we have to, be good about making sure we're just not saying, oh yeah, that animal, come on in, that animal, come on in. And Etta says super interesting and also quite sensitive. Cultural differences. Yes. I don't know that did I have that on there somewhere? I might not have, but yes, that's a good point. Cultural differences is a really good point to make as well. And again, and as I think sometimes those of us in North America don't get to see that as much. True, like a person, I imagine some animals are like, yeah, I just don't want to. Or the level of training it would require to get to a place where they would be comfortable is I don't think it's worth the investment, So, yeah. Yep, it's really, it's I think, in my opinion, sometimes, yeah. Well, yeah, you guys have got it. So I would say there have been many changes. There have been changes to many aspects of educational experiences featuring trained animals. But then again, sometimes we see that there aren't changes too. There once was an emphasis on animals emitting anthropomorphic behaviors, and there once was an emphasis on animals emitting behaviors purely for entertainment. We have also seen trends for behaviors that include more interactions with humans. Sometimes this is the caregiver in the animal, sometimes this is the guest in the animal. And there's also been an evolution towards more natural species-specific behaviors for some species. And I didn't mention this point, but however, it seems some species are exempt from criticism from anthropomorphic behaviors. Like, have you seen the videos of dogs dancing with people? We still have talking parrots in shows. We still have recycling animals and animals who take money. So, sometimes the anthropomorphic stuff, it's still allowed. And sometimes presentations feature super fast behavior with tons of animals whizzing by. But, I think with some of those, we want to consider what does that look like in terms of housing and care and training and the types of training strategies it takes to maintain that. Consider, moving away from enclosures that warehouse animals for a presentation to animals in presentations housed in habitats that are as nice as those on display. I think that's, I'm pretty much for that. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be moving in that direction. Sometimes presentations focus on one animal or a small group with more time devoted to many behaviors. And some opportunities are high-priced, intimate one-on-one encounters that are often unforgettable experiences for the guests. And those, and like I said, those are definitely still around and seem to be kind of a cool experience. Different cultures want different experiences. There's where Annetta was talking about. And so we kind of wonder who drives the decisions. Is it society shaping our behavior, or are the industry professionals shaping the direction we want our guests to go? Or is it kind of a combination of that? If it's us, then we have questions we can ask ourselves to help ensure we are adhering to standards we define in terms of messaging and animal welfare when it comes to educational experiences and presentations featuring trained animals. So there you go. Lots to think about. Oh, and Debbie just got here. You're going to have to watch the replay, man. Yeah, so lots of stuff to think about, right? And not that I gave you clear answers, but I hope I gave you some food for thought. And you might want to, think about the things that you're involved in or the things that you've seen, and where you see educational presentations going that feature trained animals. What are your goals? What do you think might be a good direction to go? What things we should keep? What things might need to change a little bit? And I don't know. Again, the fun thing about our industry is there's always room for growth. Yeah. It's a thing that's being addressed with a new federal law, and I hope we can still travel to do it. Oh yeah, because you're involved with doing educational presentations. Return on investment is a big driver. Yeah, that's a good point. Al. Yes, it's not so simple, is it? It's a very complex topic with a lot of layers and a lot of elements. And and I think maybe way back in the day, like that's maybe why it was so just maybe, entertainment driven, maybe a little bit more entertainment driven. And now we're shifting things a little bit, or maybe a lot. So maybe this is, one to think on a little bit, and come back with some more. We have a Tower Talk tomorrow, so if you guys want to think on a little bit, you can come join the Tower Talk and add to it. This might be one that you'll do some shower thinking on. All right, so what's coming up, man? Did I post this yet? No, I think I'm going to post this tomorrow or later on today. I've always called my programs educational entertainment. Yeah, edutainment, that word. I did have that in there somewhere. I thought about putting it in there. So goats. I'm going to post this week, the icon. Did your icon become a con? I always love that phrase. It's not my original phrase. I wish it was. Unfortunately, I can't remember where I heard it. Oh, I think I know where I heard it. I heard it on the Leaving Neverland interviews with the young men that were involved with Michael Jackson. I think Oprah Winfrey said it. Did your icon become a con? The animal training world is one in which communities are often built around gurus and their philosophies. Did your icon become a con? Did you find yourself drawn to a situation or person that appeared one way from the outside, but once you became embedded in that world, you realized it was an illusion? It may have been difficult to leave. You may still feel trapped in a cycle of love bombing followed by undeserved criticisms designed to tear at your self-esteem. There is hope. The first step is recognizing the situation. So this is my totally tuning into that one. Yeah. So this is that situation of how a narcissist will love bomb you at first, meaning they'll tell you you're the best thing in the world. This is how they lure you in. Everything about you is amazing. It's lots of positive reinforcement, lots of telling you all the things that are good about you, so that when it's time to turn the table and start basically changing the motivating operations, what they're going to start doing is they're going to start making the schedule of reinforcement so lean. It's so lean that you're desperate for reinforcement. you're going to be just hungry for reinforcement. And so that's why you're hanging on. And so now you're going to be on this intermittent schedule of reinforcement. And so every once in a while, they're going to toss you a tidbit, and that's what keeps you hanging on. Every once in a while, you're going to get one little tiny bit of reinforcement. And that reinforcement is going to feel so good because you've been so desperate for reinforcement. And that's what keeps you in there. So we're going to talk about that. And so many other things. We're going to look at it from a behavior analytic perspective, how this works, and of course how it affects our whole industry, and impacts the things we learn and teach and repeat. So I hope you will join me for that. Again, it's free to members of ATF or of Animal Training Fundamentals. And if you're not a member, you can still join for just that lecture if you want to. Oh, Sully says, I feel this talk already. You know what? So many of us do. There's so many of us that have been touched by this kind of behavior, unfortunately, which is why I feel strongly that I want to start talking about it, because I think more of us are impacted by it than we know. Okay. And again, go to atfgoats.com to register. If you're a member, just send me a message. You can either do that through the contact me page or just respond to one of my emails, and I'll add you to the roster, and you'll get a Zoom link that, you can join when the date comes. And just to update you on the legal stuff, more updates. This is new stuff for you. Okay, so our original lawsuit, for it to be filed, when it was first filed by the plaintiff, they had to claim that they had $30,000 in damages from the less than 2.5 minutes that they allege were defamatory that were in that hour and 22-minute video. So there's also the option for this to be transferred to the federal court, which is better for us if it gets dismissed from the Florida courts. And the reason it's better is because Florida courts, the judges are elected, and so they don't really, they don't spend as much time looking at the material, and they're likely to be more in favor of, the local party. But in order for it to go to a federal court, the plaintiff has to claim $75,000 in damages. So my legal team requested the plaintiffs admit or deny whether they were seeking $75,000 in damages, and the plaintiffs have declined to admit or deny a damage amount. And of course, if it gets dismissed in the Florida court, they might file in the federal court. And this maneuver, basically, this failing to admit or deny, is basically causes my legal fees to increase while they're sort of, avoiding avoiding the answer. So I just wanted to share that status. I filed that motion to compel is what it's called, is available on my website. There's a link to that, and I will post that on social media so you can read about it and what that's about. And of course, as always, I do have to ask people to refrain from posting any negative comments about the plaintiffs, because that does hurt my case. But again, we're trying to win this case on the merits, and hoping to get it dismissed. But as always, your support is greatly appreciated. Let's see. And just a reminder that our deadline for our discount is March 1st. This is going to be going away. We offered this for COVID relief, but that'll be going away March 1st. So take advantage of it. And I think that's it. But I did want to read Debbie's comment. I've lost so much confidence working with peers. It's been a rough go. Thanks for addressing this as always. Oh, okay. Referring to the goats lecture. Yeah. So I've been thinking about doing that one for a long time. And I've been reading so much, and getting lots of material together for that. And, it's a hard one to do because there's not a lot of great resources out there from a behavior analytic perspective, but I've been collecting those for a while now. So we'll definitely break it down from that perspective. So and also the hard thing is that a lot of the resources out there, I don't, they basically tell people to make yourself small, which is not, that's not what I want to give you as a resource. I want to give you the resource of how to actually, not only survive, but succeed. You know, how to have success in this, not go make yourself small and hide away and just avoid abuse, but how to succeed. And so that's really what, you know, how do we overcome this problem? And so that's really what the presentation will be about. So we'll recognize it. We'll talk about the problems. We'll talk about how it's impacting our industry, but we'll also talk about how we overcome it. So that is the gist of it. All right. Okay, guys. Well, here we are. We are 20 minutes past time, so I don't want to keep you any longer. And hopefully you'll check out the resources that were in your email and the new things in animaltrainingfundamentals.com. And I will look forward to seeing you next week with another topic. All right, guys, it was good to see you, and hope you have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.